On April 28th, Labour takes a moment to pay respect to the workers who have died as a result of workplace injury or acquired illness. Saskatoon District Labour Council thanks you for taking a moment of your time to pay respects to our brothers and sisters who we are remembering today and for all those who we may have missed. These names are provided to us by WCB of Saskatchewan as employees or past employees who have died because of their work. Through collective action of unionized workers, Saskatoon District Labour Council advocates for social justice and fairness in our community. The enduring April 28th call to mourn the dead, fight for the living, could not be more urgent on this National Day of Mourning. The pandemic has exposed the lack of protection for workers. Evidence from across the country and indeed around the world show the virus is spreading at work, not only in healthcare settings, but also in factories, farm work, food processing, warehouses, schools, offices, transportation, and other sectors. Workers have had to fight for access to protective equipment, COVID-safe practices at work, paid sick leave, and respect for their basic health and safety rights. On this National Day of Mourning, we call upon employers to work with health and safety committees and representatives to ensure safe and healthy working conditions wherever work is taking place, and ensure all workers have access to free personal protective equipment, training, and paid sick days so they can stay home when they are ill and not risk exposing coworkers and the community. We're calling upon the Saskatchewan government to ensure every worker has seamless access to universal, permanent, and adequate paid sick leave, so no one has to choose between going to work sick and getting a paycheck. Being able to stay home when you are sick is fundamental to reducing workplace exposures and illnesses. Enforce workplace health and safety provisions, including the right to refuse unsafe work, and deliver on the promise that workplace health and safety is recognized as a fundamental right at work. Saskatchewan workers have faced impossible choices in this pandemic. Without access to adequate paid sick days, workers have been forced to choose between going to work sick or not putting food on their own table. An estimated 58% of Canadian workers do not have access to paid sick leave through their employers. According to a report by the Decent Work and Health Network, that number rises to 70% among people making less than $25,000 a year. This failure puts us all at risk and is undoubtedly prolonging and deepening the impacts of the pandemic. Saskatoon District Labour Council works towards making our community vibrant, trusting, and respectful, an environment that is sustainable, healthy, and safe, a world that is inclusive, engaged, and equitable. I want to thank our guest speakers who will introduce themselves. I am humbled that they have graciously allowed us to capture the greetings and remarks for us to share with our viewers in this somber occasion. We will have speakers from the CLC, SFL, United Way, and the City of Saskatoon. Each one of our organizations truly wants the WCB to meet its mission of zero workplace injuries. The Day of Mourning is a reminder that we still have far to go. I am pleased to introduce the next speaker, His Worship, Charlie Clark, Mayor of Saskatoon.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to the Saskatoon and District Labour Council for your work to organize the Day of Mourning this year, here in Saskatoon on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. And to make sure that we mark this day, even though we can't join together in person. This past year, workplace safety and the reality of the risks that people face going to work each day has become amplified in a way that we could never have imagined, because COVID has placed new challenges for people in workplaces across industries and institutions. And as someone who's been able to stay relatively isolated and not been out on the front lines, I've thought a lot about all of those people who have remained on the front lines and kept our essential services running, kept us safe, and supported our health system through this. The stress and uncertainty and constantly changing rules and protocols has required tremendous resilience and adaptability. And I've seen people rising to this challenge over and over again. And whether you're out on the front lines or you're working from your home office or a kitchen table like I am today, everyone has been having to adapt and face new stresses. The situation has led to huge adaptations for workplaces, employers, and OH&S teams as well. I've seen it all in action at the City of Saskatoon and have been proud to see everyone working together to come up with solutions to keep our city running while still keeping our staff safe. I've been on regular calls with our heads of our union locals through this process and have been especially impressed to see the level of collaboration between union and management. So to all of the employers and OH&S teams and unions who have provided leadership through this, I thank you. This has had a huge impact on our community. It's also been a time of rising concern about mental health and addictions as people have been worn out by this pandemic and we've all been facing loss in our community. It has been such a reminder of how important it is to break the stigma of mental health and ensure that people have the support and safety needed to stay healthy in mind and body. In 2020, there were 34 workplace deaths in Saskatchewan, even though many people worked from home. And thousands of people across Canada have been injured as a result of work-related activities. Each life lost or injured or person who becomes sick impacts families, friends, and businesses extending well beyond the job site. Every worker has the right to return home safely at the end of the day. So today we remember all of the individuals who become lost, injured, or gotten sick from their work. And we hold in our thoughts those who are risking health and safety every day to serve others through this pandemic. And we commit to protecting workers and workplaces to prevent future tragedies. Thank you very much. Take care.
Hello, I'm Dan Brown, Board Chair of the United Way of Saskatoon and Area. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this important ceremony and to bring remarks on behalf of the United Way of Saskatoon and Area Board of Directors. The United Way of Saskatoon and Area is very proud of our long-standing and formal partnership with the Saskatoon and District Labour Council. The United Way recognizes that working men and women play a vital role in helping us to change lives and positively impact the lives of vulnerable individuals living in Saskatoon and the surrounding area. Working men and women are also an integral energy in carrying out the Labour and United Way partnership vision of building prosperous, inclusive, diverse, and respectful communities. Sadly, workers continue to suffer injury, illness, and death in the workplace, and today we're gathered to recognize this heartbreaking reality. On March 11th, the world marked and reflected on the one-year anniversary when the World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 global pandemic. United Way joins with others in honoring the pandemic's victims, including workers who provided vital services that we all rely on. We also pay tribute to all working people who continue to provide heroic frontline services during this challenging time, including, and certainly not an exhaustive list, all classifications of healthcare workers, emergency personnel, retail workers, truck drivers, postal workers, teachers, and community-based organizations and agency staff. You all deserve our applause, our gratitude, and our respect. All workplace deaths are tragic. We know that behind all those who are lost are the communities of people they leave in mourning. They are mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, grandparents, relatives, friends, and co-workers who suffer the loss of those who died. On behalf of the United Way Saskatoon Area Board and staff, I wish to express our sincere sympathy to those who mourn the death of a family member, a friend, or a co-worker, and our condolences to those whose lives have been changed by a workplace injury or an illness. The loss of life is not easy, and is especially difficult when it comes too soon and unexpectedly. This day is about remembering and commemorating, and this day is about hope. Hope where workplace injuries and death are an issue of the past. United Way of Saskatoon and area shares in this hope that by working together, we can make a difference. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lori Johb, President of the Saskatchewan Federation of Labor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to say a few words today as we come together to recognize the National Day of Mourning. A somber occasion and a chance for us all to come together in solidarity, to mourn the dead and to fight for the living. Sadly, last year in Saskatchewan, 34 workers died as a result of workplace injury or as a result of a disease they contracted while at work. To the family, friends, and co-workers of those workers, we send our deepest condolences. We must honor those workers and commit to our continued fight to make sure that all workers come home safe and healthy at the end of the day. This year, the Day of Mourning is especially meaningful as we recognize the sacrifices made by the many workers who contracted COVID-19 at work and who either became sick or died as a result. Every single one of these illnesses and deaths were preventable. And I join everyone in mourning those workers who died after contracting COVID-19 while on the job. The pandemic has exposed the lack of protections for workers. Evidence shows that the virus is spreading at work, and here in Saskatchewan, there have been many workplace outbreaks, all of which were entirely preventable. Despite having the right to be safe at work, workers have had to fight for the most basic protections, including access to proper protective equipment, COVID-safe practices, and paid sick leave. The failure from all levels of government to protect workers during this pandemic is unacceptable. Failure to take action has cost lives, and there have been zero consequences for corporations who let the virus run rampant in their workplaces because they chose profit over human life. We must demand justice for those workers and all workers who have been working on the front lines since the start of this pandemic. We need to call on our government to do better. We need to ensure all workers have access to paid sick time now and after the pandemic. Nobody should have to choose between going to work sick or collecting a paycheck. We need to ensure all workers have access to proper personal protective equipment they need. And we need to demand that workplace health and safety provisions are properly enforced. We need to send a message to all corporations that failing to protect their workers is unacceptable and that there will be consequences for not doing so. Canadian workers have faced impossible choices throughout the pandemic. Too many have been forced to make the decision to go to work sick to put food on the table, and workers have become sick and died as a result. This year, we recognize the human cost that COVID-19 has had on workers in Saskatchewan, in Canada, and around the world. And we mourn the lives of all workers who were taken from us too soon as a result of workplace injury or illness. Today, we mourn for the dead, and we fight like hell for the living. Thank you very much. Please stay safe.
Greetings, sisters, brothers, and friends. My name is Deanna Ogle, and I'm with the Canadian Labour Congress. I bring you greetings and solidarity from your elected national officers. The Canadian Labour Congress is the largest labour organization in Canada and is made up of national and international unions, provincial and territorial federations of labour, and community-based labour councils. Together, we are over 3 million workers strong across Canada. The vigils we are holding this year to mark the National Day of Mourning are once again virtual. Yet another way COVID-19 has changed the way we live and work. Though we can't gather in person, the enduring message of the Day of Mourning, to mourn for the dead and fight for the living, is ever more meaningful. For over a year, the world has faced unprecedented upheaval due to COVID-19. The virus and its variants have wrought havoc on our society and laid bare a troubling lack of protection for workers. Over the last year, we have witnessed how vulnerable we all are. This pandemic has shone a light on egregious gaps in workplace protections and exposed employers who choose to put profits over people. Evidence from across the country shows that the virus is spreading at work, not only in healthcare settings, but also in factories, meatpacking plants, warehouses, schools, offices, transportation, and other sectors. Workers have had to fight for access to appropriate, effective protective equipment, COVID-safe practices at work, paid sick leave, and respect for their basic health and safety rights. However, these problems existed long before the pandemic and have resulted in millions of deaths each year from work-related injuries and diseases. Every year, approximately 1,000 Canadian workers and more than 2.7 million workers around the world die because of injury and exposure that happens at work. In Saskatchewan last year, we lost 34 workers due to workplace injury and exposure. Over the past year, Canadian workers have kept food on our tables, essential goods in our cupboards, taught our children, cared for our loved ones, and kept critical institutions running. Workers have done all of this at serious risk and sometimes great cost to their own health and safety. The failure of governments to prioritize paid sick leave for workers in all jurisdictions puts everyone at risk and is undoubtedly prolonging and deepening the impacts of the pandemic. Without access to protected paid sick days, workers have been forced to choose between going to work sick or not getting paid, and in some cases, losing their jobs. An estimated 58% of Canadian workers don't have access to paid sick leave through their employers. That number rises to 70% among people making less than $25,000 a year. This year, join us in calling on all governments to immediately introduce or expand paid sick leave to ensure workers aren't required to go to work sick. Every worker has the right to come home from work safe. An injury to one is an injury to all.